John asks suggestion for a call service so I can show customer actual sales calls and possibly sell leads until I have a client. So I'm not sure if you mean, I'm not sure what you mean by call service, John, unless that I talked about pay-per-call exchange networks, such as like Ring Partner, for example. That's one way you can monetize assets until you find a service provider that wants to lease the asset or buy on a purchase on a pay-per-lead basis. Um, However, as I said very, very clearly in the training, that pay-per-call exchange networks, you're going to have really, really shitty conversion rates. It'll be terrible. So I don't recommend it except for something very, interim, right? Like if you've got assets that are producing calls and you don't have a service provider in place, then I would suggest using a pay-per-call exchange network as a kind of a temporary thing so that you can help to monetize those assets. Typically what I do is, and it just depends on how many calls I've got coming in, but I'll just send them to a voicemail. And, sometimes people will actually leave messages for tree services or whatever. But for the most part, I'm just showing the call data when I'm looking for a service provider. In other words, I don't have to show sales volume because that's not up to me to sell, right? My job is to generate the lead or the phone call primarily, right? Not to sell. It's the service provider's job to sell, and it's not mine. My job is just to produce the phone call, preferably a qualified phone call, but it's not my job to sell. So I don't try to show any sales data. I do like to show call volume data, and I can show call metrics if I have them. For example, like calls where they came from. So they obviously, if you're getting a shit ton of outside area codes and stuff, then they're likely solicitation calls or spam calls. But if you're getting a lot of local phone number calls, it's because those are probably bona fide leads, right? So again, that's typically what I do. I just send people to voicemail unless if I've got a GMB asset or a cluster of assets that are producing a significant amount of calls and I don't have a service. Well, usually it doesn't. If you're producing a significant amount of calls, you should be able to find a service provider very quickly because you've got something very valuable. But if for whatever reason you're still struggling with that, you could use something like a pay-per-call exchange network. But just keep in mind that your conversion rates are going to suck, and so you trying to use that data to show to a prospect, hey, look, these are how many calls I generated. I generated 60 calls in the last 30 days, but I only had 3 conversions. That would be data you don't want to show them. You know what I mean? So again, don't worry about sales data, John. Just show the call volume, and preferably if you can show that they were qualified in some manner. Okay.
If I may, I may be jumping the gun.
Yeah, that's why I didn't mention it. I know what you're going to say.
Yeah, we'll be working on something along those lines, John, where we're going to improve, let's say, the actual sales conversion. We're working on something. I mean, it's really wicked, and it's going to be really good. It's still a few months away, which is why we can't give you details because we're putting it all together as we speak. But once it comes out, John, you're in the mastermind, and always remember that membership has its privileges. You'll be one of the first people to whom this is made available.
There you go.